Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a brand new polished game of Tellstones, King's Gambit by Riot Games. Tellstones, also known as the name King's Gambit, is a bluffing, tactical game played by many of the peoples in Runeterra. In Runeterra, the game is described as a duel of minds, as players start with the same information, but as players choose their moves, their memory, their focus, and their ability to outwit and misdirect the opponent becomes a challenge. The game is played with 7 stones, all with a unique symbol. Players are racing to score 3 points because the first one to do so wins the game. The playmat will be laid out horizontally between the 2 players. This is known as the line. The 7 stones are placed beside the playmat so that both players can clearly see all the symbols, and this area is known as the pool. Each player starts with a scoring token and places it beside the playmat. When points are scored, the player will place their scoring token on the number of points that they've scored. Randomly select 1 stone from the pool and place it face up in the middle of the line. But an unwritten rule says that balance and fairness are well-respected ideals of Demacias. Therefore, when starting the game, the stone inscribed with the balance or the scales is traditionally placed first. But maybe a bold statement to use these unwritten rules is just what your opponent needs to see. A first player will then need to be chosen, and since we mentioned these unwritten rules, I'll add that the age often brings the gift of wisdom, so it's customary to allow one's elder to choose whether to go first or second. On each player's turn, players will take one of 6 possible actions to manipulate the line or try to score points. After taking an action, it will then be the other player's turn to act and choose their action. Players perform actions back and forth until there is a winner. Let's check out these 6 actions. Place. You will point to a stone in the pool and tell your opponent where to place it on the line. The new stones need to be placed face up and to the left or to the right of the stones already in play. Hide. You will point to a face-up stone on the line and tell your opponent to flip it over, face down. The stone does not change its position on the line. Swap. You will point to any 2 stones on the line, and these can be face up or face down, and tell your opponent to swap their positions. Stones remain face up or face down even after they swap positions. As you can see with these first 3 actions, the active player will choose the action and what stones are affected, but the opponent always carries out the action of what is said or wanted. Peek. Without showing your opponent, you will look at the symbol of any face-down stone on the line, then return it to the same position. However, if your opponent just scored a point either on their last turn or on your last turn, you may instead peek at up to 3 face-down stones in any order that you would like. The last 2 actions include ways to score points, and when a player scores their first point, they will place their scoring token on their side of the playmat and use it to track their points. Challenge. You will point to a face-down stone on the line, saying, "I challenge you to name the stone." Your opponent then needs to try to do so. Once they give their answer, they flip the stone face up. If they are correct, they score 1 point. If they were incorrect, then you score 1 point. Either way, the stone remains face up until it is flipped again during a subsequent hide action. Also remember, if your opponent scores a point, on your next action, you can take advantage of the peek action and peek at up to 3 face-down stones. Boast. This action is a game changer, or should I say a game ender. Either way, it is a big move and it can end the game. If you believe you can name all the face-down stones on the line, you tell your opponent, "I know all the hidden symbols." Your opponent has 3 options. They can say, "I believe you, have a point." This scores you 1 point, getting you closer to the 3 to win the game. Instead, they can say, "I don't believe you, prove it," in which you must name and flip over every face-down stone in any order that you would like. If you name them all correctly when they don't believe you, then you win the game immediately, regardless of how many points you have scored. However, if you fail to correctly name even a single stone, then you lose the game immediately. The third option is to say, "I don't care, I know them too." At that point, your opponent has stolen your boast action, and you now have to choose between the first two options, which were to believe them, letting them score 1 point, or not believe in them and making them name and flip over every face-down stone, knowing if they are right on all of them, then they win the game. But if they mess up on even a single one, then you win the game. Again, the game tests for sharp-mindedness and players who can outwit their opponents in one of several ways. Experienced Demacian players tend to add another layer to the game with good humor and swagger by loudly praising the wise tactical decisions being made, or calling out the names of random symbols, adding to some degree of confusion, or even starting a conversation about the weather or recent happenings in the royal court because, just like you, other players usually want to be in the know about the juicy gossip. Regardless of what your opponent might say, it is the stones that they point to or pick up that you should try to remember. Even King Santon I was renowned for his ability to speak at length on a variety of unrelated topics, while also committing to the movements of the stones to memory. For what it's worth, it's said that a player's true intentions or temperament might affect which stones they choose, or even the ones that they forget, as each symbol shown carries a great deal of significance beyond the game itself. The crown. To sit upon the throne is to pledge your life in service to every Demacian. The flag. We fly our colors proudly, and we do not hide who we are or what we stand for. The shield. The armies of Demacia do not rush to attack, but to defend. The sword. The truth and illumination of the Protector's blade shall drive out the darkness from our foes' hearts. The knight. Dauntless warriors and loyal steeds, they do not rest until their duty is done, nor ask for any reward. The hammer, symbolic to our nation's founding, the lost hammer of Orlon represents the strength of purpose upon which the kingdom was built. The scales. No one stands above the laws of our kingdom, and our justice shall be absolute. The game includes a game of deep tactics, simple rules, with lovely components that can be played in a short amount of time. The game has a similar feel to Onitama, as it is a 2-player game, can be played fast, and is actually full of great tactics to win. Don't get me wrong, the games are totally different, but if you might be a fan of Onitama, then I'd definitely give this one a deeper look. Let me give you some of the feelings that I've had when playing the game. So the first is when playing, I kept repeating to myself what the face-down tiles were over and over and over again in my head. So I think that distracting a player with talk unrelated to the game is great. And if that doesn't work, then talk about the game to introduce more false ideas and all that. After repeating the same thing over and over again, when a player exchanges 2 tiles, I feel like you need to either start repeating the new order in your head over and over again, forgetting the old one, or keep the same original order, but know that when challenged you can process what the original order was, but know that certain tiles got exchanged, moved, or whatever. And then after going through those moves in your head, answer what tile is being challenged. Everyone's brain is different, and the way that you keep track of the tiles can vary greatly. The more tiles that are flipped upside down, the harder it is to remember which ones are where. You also might be surprised how easy you forget the tiles when you think that you know them, so testing your competitions, understanding how they might play is great, but sometimes it doesn't matter if they have 2 points and you have 0, because you can pull off a boast action and win the game. Having only 6 actions to choose from, I feel like, is great because they each can add a depth in the game, but also progress the game with more things to remember, but also opening up different moves that can be made with the other actions. Each player gets a card that includes all the 6 actions, but also includes all the icons included on all the tiles. This can both help with memory by looking at all the tiles played out face up and eliminate them, narrowing your guesses to whatever might be on the tiles face down. Note that you can get lucky in a game by guessing tiles without actually knowing them, but I'd say usually with all the actions, you usually feel like you know what tiles are where, but when put to the test, you might be surprised. So ready your memory, your focus, and abilities to outwit your opponent in Tellstones, King's Gambit by Riot Games. Again, this is Boardgame Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.